Hello, hello. I am back again. This is Rex Red. We are back again with another live stream here. And that was the exterminator. They are coming. Luckily, I don't have any bugs in my apartment. I make sure that they don't feel welcome here. So they just never come here. So where were we? Okay, this is going to be part 2 of this. So as you can see, we're back here to our. So we were talking about this UltraScenery plane here, and we're back to this computer. And I believe this is our UltraScenery plane. Now, you could just put any plane here, or you don't have to even put an UltraScenery plane if you only own UltraScenery XT and you don't own UltraScenery, then you can just put a plane in here. So we could take this UltraScene here, and we could just put some kind of, we have your primitives here, and select a plane. And this is 20 by 20. And I could just grab this plane and scale it up. And you want to scale it about to the size, a little bit bigger than the size of your land. Okay. And as you can see, this even has much less geometry in it, because of the way that I set it when in the plane. When you go to add a plane, you see you can set how many divisions it has, so that you're taxing your computer even less. And then you could just put some kind of texture on this. So if we go to surfaces with this plane, and we could just give it a color like green. Okay, and then when we go into Iray, we have just a green plane. This gives you an idea of what your land is going to look like in contrast. And then we go back to our chair. Okay, here we select our chair, and we zoom out a little bit. Okay. And then you bring your camera down, your angle here down, so that what we're looking at here. And so I will get rid of the UltraScene. I just wanted to give you, if you have UltraScenery, give you the idea that you can just put the plane in, and you can turn off all of the. So we'll use this, and then we're going to bring this chair down to 0. I don't think UltraScenery is actually sitting directly at 0. It's not. So that was what I was going to see. If you move the UltraScenery plane, you can't go back into UltraScenery and repopulate. So you could just delete the UltraScenery. Just use it as a reference to how big an UltraScenery scene land is. Okay, so all right, so this gives us an idea of a giant piece of land. And we go back here to our perspective view, and so this is about the size of an UltraScenery piece of land. So just make it roughly, you don't have to be precise with this. Okay, it's just a matter of perspective to say this is a giant, because if you think about the way land works, is that if you're out in a big field, you can only see so far in the field. If there's no tree line blocking your view, you might be able to see miles and miles away, but the land usually looks like around the edge, where it kind of like where you're standing, it's kind of goes downhill and disappears from your vision, and then you see the mountains in the very far distant. So the land kind of drops off, and sometimes it can drop off even just, like 100 feet away. It drops off and goes down into a valley, and then you see the mountains in the far distance. So if you kind of think of it like that, that's what you take advantage of, is that layered ability with landscape, where you have the field that you're on, and the field kind of goes down into a valley, but you don't see the valley. All you see is when the land comes back up about 3 miles away and there's a big mountain range. That's what you see. You don't necessarily see down, because you're not looking at the valley, you're looking straight out. And you'd have to walk to the edge of the land and look down into the valley. And then if you're looking down into the valley, you're not going to see the mountains because you're looking down. So it's kind of, so you make use of that drop-off, let's call it a drop-off factor, okay, where the land drops off, goes into a valley, but you're not looking down there. You're looking straight kind of ahead at your character. So let's go back into our chair scene here. And if we look at this chair scene, you think, okay, you have to visualize, like what am I going to do in this scene? It's like, I made a scene where there were two guys sitting at a table outside, and there was grass and trees and all around, not too many trees, like a few trees. But then there were no trees here on the edge of this, so that it looks like it's going down into a valley. It's just dropping off. You don't know what's there because you don't kind of even think about that, okay? Because it's just dropping off, and it looks like it's going on forever. And that's the thing, is it's this kind of infinity illusion. But you have your scene here, and so when you're using UltraScenery XT, you have to think and say, okay, you have to visualize, what's your scene going to be about? Is it going to be somebody walking their dog in the park? Is it going to be a couple of people sitting out on picnic chairs on a picnic table? Is it going to be somebody laying in the sun? Okay, and so, some combat, thing where you've got a gaming characters or something, or aliens or whatever walking around on planet Earth. You have to kind of visualize and then you say, and so I'm going to have this piece of land here that this is the staging area, is this plain, okay? And that's where the grass and the flowers and the tall grass, the short grass, and the bushes, and maybe a couple of trees on the side. And then you're going to have these mountains and with trees and stuff. You're going to have your UltraScenery in the background. Okay? You have to visualize what your scene is going to be about. All right? And that's the way you use UltraScenery. UltraScenery goes in the background. You don't use UltraScenery as a staging area. You use it as that far off, distant piece of land. Okay? And so that's what UltraScenery XT is about. It's about creating that layer of landscape that's in the far distance. Okay? So now we turn UltraScenery XT on, and that's why when we look at UltraScenery, that we have this little plane here in the middle. That is our staging area. That's where that's where the grass is going to be. That's where everything up close. And this UltraScenery, and if you notice, these peaks aren't that bad. We'll look and see. We'll examine how nice this UltraScenery looks at the lowest resolution possible. And so we go back to UltraScenery, and we're at 128. Okay, so now we're going to go. now that we have a plane that is very low resolution, and we have this UltraScenery XT that has as little geometry as the program will allow, okay? Now you notice this width, okay? This is how you can change. So if this is just too much land, okay? And I don't know that I would make it much less than that, but you could go down to 500 on this, okay? And so, and you're still going to have a mountain there, all right? So you can change the width of this land here. And so we go now back down to our chair here. And the mountain is coming right up through the plane and blocking us off here. So we go back to this UltraScenery, and this is where this maximum altitude, it's obviously the mountain is too high. So if we go to, say, instead of 100, we go to 50. This is usually a pretty good hot spot for this thing. And then we change our land like this. And then what we're looking at is a mountain range. Okay? And it's appearing there out beyond our land area. Okay? And this kind of works. And so I would say let's go to 40. Okay, and so it gives us a little more sky to work with in our scene. So we have the grass that goes all the way out to there, and our land area, and you don't have to use a plane. Basically, you can just find some ground. You know, a ground you can purchase them in the DAS store. Let's say ground. And I've got a bunch of different ones here. So let's get rid of the plane and let's put some kind of ground here, ground area. And let's see what we have. Let's try this. And well, you know, it doesn't work too well. It's a hill, okay? Let's try this one. This is a large terrain. You see, and you still have that kind of effect of the ground only going so far out. And with this ground, I would probably, this is a morphing hill terrain. So it doesn't have any grass on it. It doesn't have stuff like that. And that's what where UltraScenery, the regular UltraScenery comes in. Okay, because it will generate grass and all kinds of other stuff on here. So you have to, or you could just put like a scene with a house or something like that, as long as it doesn't cover your background here. So now we go back to UltraScenery XT, and the problem that I believe people are having when they click on this biome, all right, is that where here your maximum, if you remember, I changed the maximum altitude because the mountain was going way high in the air. And, you know, it's like, how far down does it have to go? Can it go to, say, because this chair, the legs of this chair are sitting at 0. And probably, you know, the top of the chair is at plus, you know, 5 or 6 meters, okay? I'm not sure exactly what, plus 3 meters or something. But the legs are sitting right at 0. That's where this plane here is, okay, that we see in our wireframe. This, we turn off the morphing hill, turn off UltraScenery. That's where, see this plane here? That's at 0. It's sitting at 0. Okay? So when we go back to UltraScenery and we turn this on here, 0, okay, when we bring this up to, say, 0, okay, it's back over top of our head. Okay, so when we look at this here in Iray, our chair, because what we have is a maximum range of 40 and a minimum range of 0, which means that only certain parts of the land are going to hit 0. Okay, because it's averaged. And so if I look at this straight on, okay, and we spin it around, you'll notice that some parts, it doesn't look like it because it's an illusion, but some parts of this land actually do hit 0. It's just out further than the land is, but some of it hits 0, and it touches right to 0, and some of it hits 40 meters, some of it hits 0 meters. And so you have to, in order to bring it down below the chair, you've got to go down to like at least 10. Let's say try -10 below our staging plane. -10, and that's still not enough because we've got the chair going right through the land. Now, if I brought this down to 30, okay, it might, you see, be enough. Okay, then we turn back on our terrain again. And now it looks like our terrain and then a mountain in the distance kind of thing. All right. So that is how that kind of works, okay, is that you have to bring it down quite a bit below. So we go back to 20 here, and you see it pulls down the top part of it. So it's kind of weird how this all works, but some of this terrain is still going up to 30, all right, and some of it. And even if I were to go down to -50, there would still be parts of this that go up to 30. Okay? It's just kind of odd how this works. So, but as you go lower like that, and if we go down to -100, and then we go up to 50 here. Notice, I'm not sure exactly if my eyes have this right, but it looks like the texture on the land became a little bit finer looking. So it looks kind of further away. And so we go back to 20 here. So you notice how much tinier the rocks, and we could pick a different material here. And it just looks like the material is a little bit more, it's repeating a little bit more than it was. So by going down further, it kind of makes it look further away, which is kind of important. All of these factors are going to figure in on your biome. How your biome is, how your trees are going to, because if you go way down and way high, your trees may look smaller and further away. I'm not absolutely certain about that, but we're going to test that out, okay? So we'll find a piece. I don't know why the land, it doesn't quite look right. Okay, so we're going to create a save location, browse, and I'm going to go up one, and we're going to call this test terrain, because I don't know I don't have a vision on what this scene is going to be about. Like test terrain, and then we'll go into there, and it will save all of our terrain files in there. Now, I'm not sure why this looks terrible here, because it does, this right here doesn't look, it might be, let's do a quick render and see if it looks actually, this might be like a pre-render. So we go to the surface here, not to the surface, let's go to, see, this is exactly what that looks like. But when we go here, it looks different. That doesn't look like this to me, okay? So what if we were to go now into a higher resolution, like 1024 resolution? Let's see what this terrain looks like. See, it looks smoother, but the texture to me doesn't look like it's any more detailed of a texture. Okay, it looks like it's just spread over a smoother ground terrain. So, you know, that's the thing, is just start at 128 and see if you can get UltraScenery to work, okay, for you. Set it how low you want it to go, set it how high you want it to go, and then when you get down to your biome here, you'll notice you have also maximum altitude and minimum altitude. If you don't set if you don't set these, then you're going to end up with, it's going to try to put trees up to 100 meters and minus 25 meters when it goes to minus 100 meters. See, it's going to throw the program all off. And it doesn't mean that you have to set it at 50 and at minus 100, because if you have water here, if we turn on the water level, okay, and so we just turned it on, I think. No, here, water. Okay, now the water level is at 0, so you theoretically wouldn't want it to be there because it's going to come right in and pretty much cover your land. So let's set the water level at like something. Let's try messing with the water level, okay? And you see we have the same thing, and it is set at 0. So let's try going with the water level to minus 10. Okay, so now you can still see the water level. You just can't tell that this land drops like right off. It's just, it looks like it possibly goes way, way down this hill and into, you know, and has a shoreline just like this. Okay? And so, but the thing is that you don't want your trees going down below the water. They're going to be sticking up out of the water. So you're going to want your trees to start, if your water is at minus 10, then you don't want your trees at minus 10 to start. You want them to be at like minus 9, okay? So the minimum altitude of your biome wouldn't be the bottom, which would be up here, which would be minus 100. The minimum part of your biome would be at the water level, which would be at minus, because your water is at minus, the water depth is how deep it is, okay? So the water level is going to be the top layer of your water, and the water depth would be 25. I don't think it has to be that deep. So let's go. We got the water depth is 25. Okay, that's from the surface down. Okay, so you don't go minus, or it's like how many meters deep? It's 25 meters, so you could go 10. Okay, you don't go negative or or whatever. So 10 meters, okay. It really, the water depth is kind of doesn't matter. But if you're trying to save on computer computational, and also it gives you a width for the water. Now, if your land is only 500 in width, why make your water 1,000 like in size? So we could try 500 on the water and see what happens. And if you don't see the water, like we just lost a whole bunch of water out here, it really doesn't matter that much. But we could go, like, if we go 2,000, then the water, that's 200. That didn't work. 2,000. Then you end up with even longer water. But it's going to take more of your computer. Angus, welcome. I am back. I am here. I am back. The bug man came, and so we just had to check to make sure I don't have any bugs. I don't have any bugs. So they put little sticky things, so if they walk in them, they attract them, and they try to walk in it, and they get stuck there and die. And so I don't have any bugs. I don't have any bugs. No bed bugs, no cockroaches, no bugs. It's occasional spider every once in a while. I think they crawl in through under my window screens, but so okay, so your water, so this is another way. If you're going to have water in your scene, set it to a minimum amount. So I would say maybe 600 is okay. It gives you the impression that there's water out there, but it's not like going to be this, because it's going to be square, so it's going to be 600 in all directions, kind of sort of thing. So if you make your water a little bit smaller, then it's going to take less video RAM in your graphics RAM in your graphics card. So then we get to the trees, and you have different water maps. Okay, we can try different kinds of water. They all kind of look the same because my sky is just kind of, it's not very conducive. That one looks a little bit lighter. So, but the water, we changed the water color, and it kind of looks the same. Oh, those ones look pretty dead. It's like some kind of, they're pretty extreme. So we'll just leave this water here until we start messing with the sky, and then the water may actually look different with different. Now, if you'll notice that there is the water creates a border on this UltraScenery XT land. This isn't just the water creates that, because otherwise, if the water didn't do that, it would look like the land just goes right into the water, and you don't want that. It doesn't look realistic. Land usually has like a coast, like beaches and a border. And so UltraScenery XT is smart where it places the water. So if I lower the water to say 15, minus 15, well, then it puts that border lower. Okay, it's pretty smart. So I liked the minus. So let's go to -5 and try that. And this is kind of interesting. I think the -10 was the most interesting. So -10, because it looks farther away. Okay. At least so. So changing this 50 and 100, the minimum and maximum altitude. So if we say this minimum altitude, let's go at 50. Okay. We lose our water. But if we take the upper altitude and say 25, Okay, it kind of does the same thing again, but not really. So changing these minimum, it still looks like it's about the same height. And then you can also change your seed here, and changing the seed to just even 1 digit changes it radically. So it changes this picture, and this picture is the kind of land formation. The white part is the high part, and the black part is the low part. So it randomly generates another piece of land. An image, and that image is turned into land. So it's really amazing how this works. And you can play around with all of these. But I believe if we go back to 500, it will give you the exact same image that we had. Yes. And that's really nice that that it's going to use the same coordinates. Now you change one of these little factors here and it throws that all off. So when you go back to 500, it will be different. And so we're going to go back to 100 here. And I think we had 50 here. And this brings us back to our gigantic piece of land again. So when we get to the biome down here, so we don't want, let's go to 50 here. No, that didn't work. We'll go back to 100. And let's, on the top part, what happens when we go to 25? I may have been at 25 there. No, okay, that's not. So let's go to 40. And so I think it was at 50. Because that looks like the piece of land we had. All right, so we go down now to our biome. And you want to pick the kind of trees. And let's try this tussock conifer. And then we go here to, I always set the scale to 0.5. Double click. It's just because I want the trees to be as tiny as possible to make this look really far away. Okay? And then what I do is I set the minimum altitude needs to be 1 less than your water depth. So if the water depth is at -10, then the minimum altitude has got to be -9. Okay, now you don't want trees standing on the tippy top of this mountain. Usually the trees stop somewhere as they get towards the top because it's too cold way up top for them to grow. So you have to pick something, at least that's my way of doing it. You can do it however way. So if your maximum altitude is 50, okay, let's take the trees up to 40. So you can have this set so incorrectly that you won't have any trees. All right? So now let's take and look at our render settings. And go to general here. And let's go to 2000. And we're about 16 by 9. And let's do a render. And we should have trees now. Some kind of trees, I'm not sure. And there we go. And you'll notice and what's kind of odd here, okay, is that our trees didn't. And now you notice the land, that the land itself also, it looks better than it did. Now, if we take the trees off the land, see, because here it just looked like terrible, okay? But when we went into the final render here, the land looks really super duper realistic. Okay. Now our trees didn't grow all the way down into, and you can't see where they stop because our mountain is cut off here from our scene. What we would have to do is cancel the render. And we'd have to bring this mountain up a little bit like this. We're going to lose some of our water maybe. All right, so now we can see the whole thing. Let's try it again. Okay, there's my little angel scene on my desktop. It's like, who's he? All right, let's see now. We go here. And we can see if our... Now, I might have set that wrong, but because I don't see any trees going down to the water. So I think it's supposed to be minus, yeah. I think I set it at 20, and it's supposed to be minus 20. Okay, so so like I said, you can set the biome for the trees wrong, and you won't get any trees at all until you go in and set that maximum and minimum thing. So we don't have any trees on the top. You see, it stopped at about 40. But the problem is, and this program works really accurately well. It was made right. So the problem here is we go back to this. I think that's what I did wrong. UltreScenery XT. No, it says the biome is -9, and that's where I put it, and it's not showing there. So maximum slope in degrees, so maybe it won't put them when the slope is high. So let's go at 25 degrees. Let's see what happens. Because they're supposed to be, and so your slope, minimum slope, see, I don't understand this that well, okay, but this slope could be something that stops your trees from going there. And it can also be the seed sometimes. So, and what we have is, we also have it set to the current camera. Do not turn that off, or it will put trees all the way around behind the camera, okay? Now, and you know, that makes me think that if you're going to use this as an HDRI, if you're going to create an HDRI, you have to find out, because if you notice, I turn this around and I can put, let's look at the camera view. See, this is a 365 degree world, okay? So you have your character sitting here in the chair, and you can turn this world all the way around. And unfortunately, there's not much land there anyway. All the land happens to be in front, which is kind of nice anyway, because it gives us that scene that we want here. So we just go straight from the front on. And I believe I had it turned. You can't rotate UltraScenery or it won't generate right. You can't go and click on this and go into parameters and scale it, rotate it, move it where you want it, because when it goes to generate your trees, it will generate your trees where it was originally. It just won't work. You cannot move the UltraScenery XT, and that goes for UltraScenery as well. You can't move them. Once you move them, you can't go back in and regenerate. You can't move UltraScenery XT at all. They are, so that's why you have all of those seeds, so you can generate the land you want. You have like 3,000 different seeds, so you can generate the land to your specification. You can move your camera around like this, okay, and get the right part, okay, but you can't move UltraScenery and rotate it around or it won't work. So now we're going to change the slope, and let's do another render here and see if by lowering the slope, we lowered the maximum slope in degrees to, let's go to 10. And see if the trees now, there might be too much of a slope for the trees to grow on, okay? So let's do a quick render here. Where's our render thing here? And you don't want trees growing out of the side of a mountain, you know? So it doesn't look like now we have any trees, okay? So the slope, all we changed was the slope, and that got rid of the trees. So let's cancel this, and let's try going more extreme. And instead of that, what was, I think, 45, let's go 60-degree angle. See what happens now. 60 degrees. Okay, so apparently it likes that a little better. Now, I'm not sure why. Normally I get trees all the way down to the and I'm not sure what this is. So if I were to turn the biome, okay, let's turn the biome off and see whatever these little teeny things are. I don't think they're trees, but this could be, it says this tussock one. Tussock could be that these, so let's turn the biome off, okay? And then we go back to, and we render it again. And tussock could be that these lower, yeah, okay? If you'll notice now that when this is clear, there's no shrubbery or anything. And I believe what this tussock means is that in the lower part that's closer to the water, we turn this back on, and then we go back to render, and you'll notice that it's putting like shrubbery down here low. So the biome is smart enough to say, and it's putting it like 1 degree above the water. It's not going into the water. But you see these little teeny shrubs here, they weren't there before. And there's shrubs coming down here and shrubs here, and look, there's even a few trees on our slope here. And it's smart enough to put the trees there on this slope, but to have them still go up and not come straight out, okay? This program is a work of art. It's a brilliant brilliant work of art, okay? And so it knows enough to now, and this is what this tussock is. Now, if I were to pick another biome that doesn't have this tussock, well, the trees will come right down then too. So this is one of the really smart ones where, and it's nice that it looks like the trees are only happy growing up that high, and down any lower than that. And I'm not sure how you would break the tussock up so that the trees would come down further, but you could certainly try changing the seed of the trees. Let's change it to like 600, and this will just give you a different scattering in different places. Every time you change the seed, it's going to give you a different scattering. If you go back to 500, it will give you that same scattering we just saw. And every increment is a completely different scattering of the trees. So I don't believe that any particular one of them will give you no trees, but there's a possibility they could scatter and all be on the other side of the map, and where you'd get no trees. So these trees, believe it or not, it looks kind of the same, but it's not. The trees are all in different places. Remember, we had a tree like right about here. It's a totally different scattering. You see, I like not having any trees on the top of the mountain, just to have a little bit of a difference. And all of this tussock stuff. Now we can try a different kind of tree. We have all kinds of different biomes. And when we don't use this tussock, okay, and we go with, say, this mixed forest, and it should change this picture, yeah. Notice the trees go right down. Now, when we look at that tussock one, I don't know which one it was, you can see this where you got these little teeny trees here, and then it looks like bigger trees. This is very interesting. I think that's the one I just had. 13 might have been the one we used. Okay, it's a little bit less tussock. You don't see them here, but let's try shrub. And it should give you a pretty much idea of what this is. This looks like the trees go all the way down. Let's look at it, okay? And see what it goes. It looks like the shrubs and trees go right down to the water, but they're not going to go to the water. They're going to go 1 degree above the water, because that's the way I said it. You don't want them coming right out of growing right out of the water. Okay, that's just not the way trees really grow. They get smothered with the water and die and dry up. And and you notice how they get really tiny up on the mountain. This is a nice, I told you, the artwork here is amazing, okay? So, and you really can't tell that this land is the lowest quality land possible. And I will tell you that putting this down to 128, we could go to, my computer will do 1024 land. Putting it down to 128 isn't saving you a ton of like geometry or graphics memory, because those little squares in they're not what really take up it's the actual image that's laid over top of that geometry that takes up the space. UltreScernery XT is made of very low resolution models so that people with a weak computer can still use it, okay? Now UltraScenery itself, because the land is supposed to, the grass and the trees and all supposed to be close up, that's different. UltraScenery requires a pretty powerful computer to run it. But this UltraScenery XT should be able to run on most weak computers, okay? So now let's do a render of this. This is a different, we just put the resolution and made the land look really, really smooth, okay? And we put that deep resolution into the land. So, and it's going to take a little longer to render. Okay. And what I'm seeing here is that the land looks smoother, okay? It looks like it's less jagged, but the images that are laying over top of it, they don't look that much different. So I would tend to think that it does look a little better. Let's look at that mountain peak right there, okay? And just kind of imprint that in your mind, okay? We'll cancel this, okay? And then we'll go back to the 128. That makes all the chicken wire kind of much wider, okay? So now you can see this looks, it doesn't look smooth, they all look jagged. But let's see, we're looking at trying to look at the texture on top of it, okay, and saying, does changing that make the terrain texture any better? And you know, I can see these this kind of jagged comes right to a point here. It's not even smooth. It's so you can see the jaggedness, but it looks like it uses still kind of the same texture. This still works, people. It still works at the lowest resolution. It still looks pretty good. So if all your computer can do is this lower resolution, it's not that bad, okay? To my eye, this still works, kind of. It looks very, only subtly different from the highest resolution version, okay? So that's done very, very well. So, okay, we cancel here. So now what we're going to do is look into creating an HDRI of this scene. So we're going to leave it at low resolution. And what we're going to do is we're going to take, now that we know the perspective, this chair gave us the perspective. And this piece of land told us how this was going to look once we put a piece of land here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the chair and hide it. And we're going to also hide our hill. Okay, and then we're going to put an HDRI in the scene. Okay, so what we'll do, we're going to lock our camera here. So we go to favorites and lock the camera. That's where I keep my hotkey for that. So we're going to lock the camera. And then we're going to go now to our render setting. Let's put some kind of HDRI in the scene. So, because we're going to create another HDRI, a new HDRI. So, we go to our Smart Content Products. Or we could just go to our environment here. And pick surfaces. Come on. Show this, turn that off. What's wrong with this? I guess it would be parameters, okay. And then we go to here, browse. And this should take me into my HDRIs, all. And we are looking for Echo stop. Echo wants to remind me to water my plants. Okay, well, let's take this one. This HDR, 8K HDR. And we'll put this in the scene. And we have to turn it on. Draw the dome on. Turn the dome on. And that looks kind of terrible, but let's see what happens when we rotate this around a little bit. I think we have to turn the ground off. No, this is just not going to work. Well, that might work. Okay, there. Habib, welcome, welcome. Welcome, my friend. You are here. We're going to try to... There's the sun. Okay. And let's see what this looks like when we render it. How are you? And Pat is here. Welcome, welcome. I am trying to give you guys a way to make this UltreScernery XT because I have had some subscribers. I think they, you know how I can talk people into just rushing right to the store and buying stuff. And I think they went and bought it and they were disappointed. They couldn't get the trees to work. And some of them just couldn't get it to work with their computer. I'm trying to show you how that UltreScernery XT will work even with some pretty slow computers. You just have to set the you can watch from the beginning here. You have to click on UltreScernery here. Where's our UltreScernery XT? Set the resolution down to 128. And that should cut as much out. And you have to make an HDRI of your scene. I think we'll use that sky. So now I'm going to show you how to make an HDRI of your scene. And we go to render settings. And we're going to set our aspect ratio to 2:1. Or it might be 1:2. I think it's 1:2, yeah. So we have to have double. Yeah, like that. And we'll go up, and you don't want to make your HDRI too big, but let's say 4,000, that'd be 4K. No, that'd be 8K, I think. Yeah. So let's go 2,000 to 4,000. That would be 4K sky. Yes, I did one. I believe. Yes, I did. I did actually several. I did a couple blend. That I took your suggestion and I did a blender sculpting tutorial. It's up on my channel, and you just have to go and look. Go to my channel and look up videos. It's I believe it's one of the best tutorials that I've ever made on Daz Studio. There are two of them. One of them is a hexagon sculpting tutorial, and the second one, part 2, is a blender sculpting tutorial. Pat just asked me in the chat. It says you plan on a blender sculpting tutorial. It's been requested in comments. Yes, and the only thing is that I didn't use every Blender sculpting tool. I only use like 2 of them because you really only need I'm losing my voice here. You only need, if I turn that down, I don't know what, if I turn my voice up here in my ears, I might talk a little quieter. You only need really to use two of the tools. One of them is to grab, and the other one is to kind of smooth, at least from my perspective of how I use it. So yeah, I believe it is one of my very best tutorials because it shows you how to take, like, you know, when you lift the arm up on a character, and they and it stretches their clothing and makes this really bad, like the pattern on their clothing gets stretched way out. It shows you how to fix that and bring that so basically you can make your clothing fit anything. So you just but you have to have set up diffeomorphic to use it, okay? And I don't show how to set up diffeomorphic on any of my videos, just so you know, because there are a lot of videos on the internet, on YouTube, that already show how to set up diffeomorphic, okay, in DAZ Studio. So just look up how to set up. If you don't have diffeomorphic set up, set it up. Diffeomorphic is amazing if you like to work a little in Blender and DAZ. So you set up diffeomorphic, and then you're able to just bring your character in with their clothes and all, and you can shape that clothing right on your character. And so I show you how to do all that. Now this is supposed to work. So we're looking through our camera, and now we have, I don't think, oh, this isn't correct. Okay, because this should be 2 like this. I believe it should be, no, I think this is correct. Yeah, because we want the height high, and we want the width in. And then what we do is we go to our camera parameters, which we have locked, and we have to unlock it now. And we'll unlock the camera. And somewhere here, we have the camera lens distortion would be spherical. There we go. I don't know if I did this right, okay? Because that doesn't look like an HDRI to me. Okay, so, but then we go, okay, to, that was parameters here. Then we go to our render. Let's try going back to render settings, and let's do this 2 to 1. Okay, that looks like an HDRI. We had it backwards. So we would go 4000 by 2000, and that would be 4K. Anus, welcome. Welcome, Anus. It's nice to have, my gosh, we got everybody here. Like all of my channel friends. Okay, so we have an HDRI now. So then what we do is we go into our render settings, and we go into advanced, and we go into canvases and add one. Select canvases, Then add, and beauty is the one I think we need. No, lighting environment. Environmental lighting, I think it is. Okay. Yes, and what this does is it turns this image, it's going to save this image as a 32-bit HDRI. Okay? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to render it. Okay? And you don't have to you can set the render settings so it doesn't like render forever. I may have to go back in and render. And remember that we notice there are only trees in this area because I set I told UltraScenery XT to only put trees in the camera view, and I believe the camera view is still, because obviously it's not put trees here, and that's what we want. We don't want to put, because we're not going to use, we know what part of the H dot. Oh, very good. Yeah, I was quite I guess proud is the word. I was quite proud of that Blender video because it is one of my best videos that I think I've ever made on this channel. It's because it's so helpful. You're right, Anus. It's so helpful. Very, very, very helpful. So we're going to let this render until it kind of looks good. So by turning this into an HDRI, then you can delete UltraScenery XT out of your scene. You can delete all those triangles and all those trees and all that stuff and just bring it in one image. But that one image is actually, it's a 4K image. So you can render it like at 2K, you know, instead of 4,000, you could do it at 2,000, but it's going to look a little more blurry, or, you know, but it's a way of just getting your UltraScenery XT out of the scene and turning it into, so how many? Okay, we're at 71. I think this is enough. I'm going to show you that, okay? Okay, see, this canvas, it saves it as an EXR, I think, file. What this is doing is it's creating your regular image here, okay? But in the background, it's creating your HDRI also. And I'll show you how this works as soon as we're done. Let's let this get to 100. Now, it's taking a while to render this because it's rendering a 360-degree image. And this image, I believe, yeah, is look at this. This image is also seamless because our scene is seamless. And so, and there's some kind of land that's in this particular image. So, but we're only going to use this little area here. Okay, we're at 100. So we'll cancel it here. Come back. All right. Now we go to here. And we're going to change, I'll change this to my desktop. And let's create an image folder here called, well, we'll go here and create it called just XT. And we'll go in there and we select the folder where it's going to go. And then we'll just call this XT our also. And that's going to save a PNG file. All right. But there's going to be some magic going on. It says saving canvases. Okay. So when we go into here, into our XT file, we have this PNG file, but then we also have this XT canvases. Okay, and this is a 32-bit, because a JPEG is only like 16-bit, it's like millions and millions of colors. Okay, but this, and if I did it right, and I did it right because this is an EXR file. So this you do set it to environment lighting, and you get an HDRI. This is 71 megabytes. So it's not gigs, it's not even 1 gig, but you figure it's a gig is 1,000 megabytes. So it's not that big. So it takes all of that geometry from your scene. So now we can turn this off here. We'll go back, take our camera, and bring our camera back to our 16:9. Take our spherical thing off here. So I hope this works. You might have to tinker with it a little. Okay. But let's go to now our render settings. Let's go back. We can take this canvas off. We don't want to make another one. And then we can go to our 16:9 again. But we're also going to now go back to our camera setting here, which is in parameters. And we take this spherical back off. Go back to none, I guess. All right, so we're back to our view. So now we can take our UltraScenery XT, and I'm just going to turn it off, but in your case, you could delete it. And then what we do is we may have to arrange the... Now what you can do, I'm going to show you a little trick. This canvas here, you can open this in Photoshop, okay? So let's open this up in Photoshop. And let's see what it looks like. Photoshop can view and save these EXR files. And your HDRI files. Okay? Now I may be wrong about the EXR ones. I'm quite sure it can open EXR files, but what's this question here? Photoshop as alpha channel data as transparency, I guess. We'll see. I don't know. Okay, now if you can see, this came out like pure white. And that is because I believe our brightness. So let's go to image adjustments, brightness. If we bring our brightness down. Okay, that didn't work. Adjustments, levels, maybe the... Yeah, you can see that this is all in one band here. All right. Well, I'm not sure how to do that in Photoshop. How to expand that one little band so it covers the whole area. But probably those sliders, just taking the black out. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to load this into our environment options. So we go to environment options, and instead of this map, we're going to browse to the desktop. To the desktop. And we're going to go here to our XT file into the canvas, and we're going to load this. It's going to come out white like this. And I believe what we do is we go 1 and we divide it by 10,000. And there we go. Okay. So if you saw what I just did, okay, well, let's go back to our 1. We had a 1 there. Okay. And what we do is we just take that and we put a / for divide, and then we go 1000, and then what we have to do is rotate the dome. So what I usually do to do this correctly is I go into filament mode and give it a moment to load our HDRI into here. It should load it. Then I can just kind of move this around to where we want it. And there's also, we could go to finite sphere, and I think this scale multiplier. Because it looks like it's a little further away. Because the trees go. So, but let's take a look at this now in Iray. See, it looks pretty much like it looked in our, and then you can put your UltraScenery terrain back in like this. Oh, that's the UltraScenery XT. You can put your hill back in, and you can put back in your chair in the scene. Now, I've just kind of I've realized that I'm in the wrong place. So what I'm going to do is turn this like this. That's the way we had this. And my camera, okay. And then we can take go back to our environment options, go back to filament mode, rotate the dome again until we get to where we want it. And we are pretty much back in business here. Yeah, you could save it as a TIFF instead, but you don't want the TIFF, Pat. What you want to load into your scene is the I prefer a PNG because a PNG I believe a PNG has a higher I've been told it has like a maybe 8-bit or something. I believe it's higher. A PNG is higher. I think a JPEG is like 8-bit, but I believe for color, but I believe a PNG is higher than 8-bit. So I would always suggest, I don't know a lot about the TIFF format, But I personally would prefer a PNG file over any other format, because what's nice about a PNG is I know that, I don't know if TIFF does this, but a PNG will has transparencies in it, okay? So if you wanted this sky to be just transparent so that you could put another image here, like bring it into Photoshop or something, that you can use it as your transparencies here. If you notice, I have like little beeps going on outside. They are like lasering up the road, and there's like dump trucks and caterpillars, and and they are just up and down, big huge dump trucks, and they're jackhammering the street, and I've never heard so much noise made from construction in my life, but that's what they have to do. So I didn't get much sleep last night, so my voice is, I think I got about 4 hours sleep. So, all right, so this looks a little blurry. If you want it to look better, you have to make it 8K, and which, okay. So as you can see, Pat, this just gave you, thank you everybody for the likes. Very nice of you to leave these likes on my channel. So if you want it to look better, then you have to set the render settings higher. You would have to go to like 8,000 by 4,000. So you go 2 to 1. All right. So you want the width, the 2 to 1 ratio. Remember that. Okay, that's important. This 2 to 1 ratio. So you just set this 2 to 1. And I think maybe if I did this 2 to 1 like this, to 1, maybe we might end up with, yeah, it's fitting the actual scene now. So, yeah, that's our ratio for the, and it does look a little clearer now. So you could always resize the image once it's made and all, but so then once you get UltraScenery out of the picture, so I could delete that now. You've used the UltraScenery XT to create that other layer. Then you can take, because all we did was put this little simple plane in the chair in here, because we're trying to help somebody that has a computer that's not very, very expensive. We're trying to help them be able to use UltraScenery XT in their scenes. And once you do that, then you can take the chair out. Then you can take this morphing terrain out. And then you can come into here. And we have our camera in the scene here. So you can go to, well, we can open UltraScenery. Most used, UltraScenery Creator. And we'll go with a flat piece of ground. Features. And we'll go with something really nice here. Features, we'll go with a flat piece of ground. And we'll go with this we'll go with this one here, Britain. And build. Okay, we're just going to turn off the trees. So the oaks, oak seedlings. We can come back and turn them on, the birch. Okay, and we're going to select our camera view. So it only puts stuff there and build a scene. We just turned off all the big trees. And we render a so this is when you bring in your, big guns in your scenes. So pretty much your whatever it is, whether if you want a character or a nice farmyard or something with the mountain in the background with the sunset, this is when you bring that stuff in. Okay, can you make a character preset with hair included? Okay, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by, you mean to save a character with their hair on them so that when you just load them in, they're ready to go? The way you do that, Pat, is you save them in a scene. Okay? You don't save them as a preset. You save the whole scene. Okay? You put your character alone in the scene with their hair, and yes, that's what you do, Kat. Okay, with their hair on them, ready to go. What you do is you save them as a scene, okay, as a duff file, okay. You don't save them as a scene subset. You save them as a scene, and then what you do is you go to that scene and you merge that scene with just them alone, with their hair. And you could have clothing and all that on them, okay? And you just merge that scene into your current scene. And I'll show you where the merge, if you haven't noticed it. Up here in this file menu, there's a merge. And that will do it for you, okay? So you save your characters as a scene. And that saves almost everything, okay? It might not save some of your morphs on your characters. It might not save some of the morphs. Okay, it says we're done here. Okay, let's see what this looks like now. Let's see how this goes. As soon as we get our computer back, I'll show you the merge. And yeah, if you open the scene and you start making a scene and then you save it, then you've kind of lost that ability, because then there's all that other stuff. So when you load the scene, you have to delete all that other stuff out to get your character back. Okay, but okay, so what we have to do now is go into here, and we would have to take this UltraScenery here. Okay, so I'll show you where this is. This is the merge. See this merge here? So you click on that and you find that file. So what you want to do is like create a folder with these characters with their hair already on them. And you know, give them a specific name, like so-and-so character with so-and-so hair, you know, so that you know what they are. And you could have clothes on them and all of that other stuff. You just don't put anything else in the scene, okay? You could have the environment options and tone mappers and stuff like that. You know, maybe a camera. You don't have to have any of that, though. You can just create the character and then delete those things. Delete the tone mapper, delete the environment, delete any cameras, anything like that. Just have the character and their clothing, and then you just go into merge, because I don't think these, like if you save as with the preset scene subset, I don't know that the hair comes in right and all. So, and their poses and all kinds of other things just don't seem to work right with that. It saves the object, but I don't know that it always works. And I think that's what you're finding, that by using this scene subset, that it's not bringing the hair in right. Well, scene will, okay, but scene is it's the scene thing is not diehard, like, because when you load a scene in, it's looking at your DAZ library to find that character and load them in. And so if you use morphs on that character that aren't saved with into the character itself, it won't. And the same with hair. If you do like mesh grabber, or if you remove the eye, like if it's a Genesis 9 figure and you move the eyes around, some of that stuff, even as a scene, won't load back in correctly, because it's looking at the character from your library, from your saved library, and loading that character in from there. And if those morphs and those changes that you made aren't part of that character, it will revert back to the character. You have to save those morphs in with the character. So it's not perfect, but it will work with the hair. The hair will come in with the character, as long as you don't, I think, use mesh grabber on the hair. It may not save those mesh grabber. Don't quote me on that, but you might be a little disappointed, but at least the hair is there, okay? So now we have UltraScene in here. What we can do is kind of bring this down a little bit and see what happens. Bring our camera down a bit. See if we can see the land. Let's see what this... Okay, we have UltraScenery in here. We might have to go into our render settings and set it to memory. Okay, well, this kind of worked. But my camera is like really low to the ground and all, so what we got to do is just kind of set this up now that we have some grass in here. See, so we've just cheated. It looks like we have like UltraScenery XT in our scene. But we don't. We have an HDRI of it. And the thing is that with like, you can't make an HDRI of UltraScenery. And the reason why is because UltraScenery goes in front of your character. Okay? But you can make an HDRI of UltraScenery XT, because UltraScenery XT is always behind everything. And the thing is, you could say, well, you can make an HDRI of UltraScenery. Yeah, you can. But when you stand your character in there, the grass that's on the ground is all going to be like a flat picture. And it's not going to, like with this grass here in UltraScenery, when they stand in the grass, they're going to be standing on the grass. They're not going to be standing in the grass. And that's the difference. But it doesn't matter with UltraScenery XT, because you can just make an HDRI of it. And you saw that all I had to do was kind of get my camera in the right place, make my UltraScenery XT scene like you do with anything. Make sure the trees are in the right place. Make sure that you have an HDRI behind it and all. So now what we can do is I can take this UltraScenery XT. I could take the UltraScenery here, and we can take this UltraScenery because it's an HDRI, and we can go into the only way to view an HDRI other than Iray is in filament mode. So we go to filament mode here. And when we can take this HDRI, we go on our environment settings, and we can just move it up. Parameters. What would it be? X. Okay, that didn't work. Z. Okay, that's not the one. Z. It would be probably Z. There we go. So we can bring this up like this, and there's our water. And a little bit more because the grass is going to be a little higher. And we could take this, if I don't plan on going back into UltraScenery, I could just kind of bring this down a little bit, so it's kind of, that's actually right at 0. So UltraScenery, but once you move this plane, you'd have to come back here and set that to 0 in order to bring it back into UltraScenery and regenerate it. You can't move it or you can't bring it back into UltraScenery. If you select this, I can bring it back in. It'll remember all my settings, and then I can tweak it and then bring it back. But you can't do that if so back to this, when we go in now into Iray, you can see if I created an HDRI of this UltraScenery, and then I say, well, I'll just put my characters in. Well, this grass, when they're standing in the grass, isn't going to, or if there's like going to be a shadow of the grass and or anything like that on your character, nothing in front of your character is going to react right. So if it's something that's in the background of your scene and you can't do the same thing, now look how beautiful that is. You can't do the same thing with also, now all those little specks there, if you render this up to like up to 2,000 iterations, all those little light specks will go away. They'll all, what I call, reticulate. So I don't use any noise filters. I just render my scenes long enough until the, see, they're almost gone just sitting here letting it reticulate in. So that's a way. If you've purchased UltraScenery XT and you can't get it to work because your computer's too weak and you're really upset with the fact that you went out and bought something that you can't use, you can use it. Okay, you just make sure you know that you put something really like simple, like a chair in the scene, so you know. That's why we had the chair, so you know how big things you're human. Don't put a figure in there because that figure is going to take up a whole gig. If you've only got 4 or 5 gigs of memory in your graphics card, or 8 gigs even, that one figure is going to take up a gig. This UltraScenery piece of land's probably taking up 2 or 3 gigs. And even though it's only populated in front of the camera, it's still taking up a huge amount of RAM. So just put a plane in the scene that's about the size of your UltraScenery grass, of the UltraScenery thing. Just put a simple plane there with a few divisions, and put a chair there so you know roughly about how big a human would be. And then you start building your UltraScenery XT scene, okay? And then you follow the instructions. Once you get your UltraScenery, you get your trees in the right place, all that stuff I talked about. You get your water if you're going to use water. You put a background HDRI into your scene, okay? So you find the right HDRI to put in behind your scene, your UltraScenery XT scene. So you get that set in. And then you render your picture here. Then you render your HDRI. And you remember that you use that lighting canvas and you set it at 2:1 ratio for your, and then you go into your camera setting and you set your camera to be at the spherical setting. So the lens warp, I guess, factor. And I have this set here, so I think if I were to push this over just a little bit, my camera, it looks like my trees are running out on the left-hand side. So let's, and it, you know, so, I mean, and this whole, the fact, I used this UltraScenery terrain. If you're not a fan of UltraScenery, just use whatever terrain you have. But remember, use this drop-off factor, I call it, okay? It's like you can't see that this drops off. You just assume that you're on a hill and the land goes down into a valley and goes down, and it's this illusion, and you can get by with a very small piece of land. I'll show you how much you can do this here. So if I take this Control L, we got some light here. Can we get some light here? I hope I didn't just delete my land. I don't think I did. So we take this and we would go Z. We bring this UltraScenery land in here, and I'll show you how far you can get away with this. It's called I call it the drop-off factor. Let's see. We're going to just have a little sliver of land there. Okay, now let's go back into Iray. You can have a staging area of this little sliver piece of land, because you don't know that the land goes out like 10 feet and then drops off into a hill, and so it works. This drop-off factor, I don't know what it would be called, and I also refer to it as layers, where your scene has different layers. And you see, this works. Even just this little sliver of land works. Okay, so you only need a tiny bit of UltraScenery. You render it here, you take it back into UltraScenery. But the thing is, UltraScenery is going to give you this piece of land, whether if you like it or not. And so what you would do is you would move your camera to the edge of the UltraScenery land and then render it. Render UltraScenery. Go back into UltraScenery and render it so that you, and then now this is a perfect staging area. And the fact that this background image is kind of blurry, that's kind of what, that's kind of like a depth of field thing. So now we could get this background image to be crystal clear if and I've already deleted our UltreScenery XT scene, but we could get this crystal clear if I had just rendered it at 8K, okay, and in the parameters did a 2:1 at 8. So 4,000 by 2,000 is 2K. 8,000 by 2,000 by 4,000 is 2K, is 8K, and 9,000 by half of 9 would be 4.5 is 9K. So just so you know, that's how it works. So 13K would be, or 12K, half of that would be 6,000. So that's what we're talking about here. So and the more you do that, it's a way of getting your something that's in the background anyway. It really doesn't matter that you have, and it's another way of getting your trees into your scene because they won't show in UltraScenery XT anyway. So it's a way of getting your trees into your scene and your HDMI and HDRI and your HDRI. I mean, it looks really beautiful. Let's make sure that now in your render settings, when you have UltraScenery in here, you have to go to your optimization and set that to memory. If it should happen to get set on speed, your UltraScenery, if you've ever been using UltraScenery and it just keeps going round in circles and round in circles and it won't go into Iray, this is why, because this isn't set to memory. It has to be set. It says it right on in the beginning of the UltraScenery manual. But so what you would do is you would have to move your camera, because you don't need all of this foliage back here, okay? So my camera was set at 0, and so, well, it was set at behind 0, so it could focus in on 0 in the world. And so we have this gigantic piece of land with all this grass on here that we don't need. I don't know what's causing all that noise. Getting some kind of static here. Okay, I think I got it. Just my connections weren't too good. All right, so yeah, so this is how we do this. So what you would do is you would move your camera out to the edge, and so you would, and then go into UltraScenery. It's kind of difficult to do it, but then once you get the UltraScenery land that you're going to want, and it's kind of nice sometimes to bring in we could put in a distant light, and go to here, and we could put some kind of light on this land here. What time is it? 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we go here, and now we have a distant light that we can look through. And there is our scene here. There's our camera. So let's come at it from an angle like this, maybe. It's pointing right there. Go back to our camera. And let's go back to Iray. And then we'll go to parameters. And we go to distant light. And wait until this, so let's give it a 2. We know it's going to at least want 2 lumens. Now my distant light might be, because remember we changed that light to divided it by 10,000. That could, no, I think my distant light is working. So now what we have, okay, happening, which is a kind of nice effect, is we have light coming from the sun and hitting the flowers, but then we have another light source coming in from the side, and they're fighting each other, okay? And the computer has to, one light has these thousands of rays, I don't know how many there are, but coming in from the sun from one side, and then there's all these specks of light coming from this sky at us directly, and the computer has to figure how they all weave in and bang and bounce into each other, okay? But the computer can do it if you give it enough time. So let's go to 9 here and make this really strong and see if what happens when we go with 9. Well, see, that does look brighter, okay. So let's go with even a higher. Now, it's not going to shine on this mountain. Now, if I had UltraScenery XT, that distant light would probably light the water and light, but this HDRI is so far away that distant light isn't going to change this at all. If I want this to have that effect on it, I would have to just brighten it like overall, kind of do that kind of thing. The distant light is not going to affect that. So let's go to 15. Let's see what that does. Come on. Come on, Iray. Well, see, now that's really bright. But it just shows you that the distant light kind of works. And so we'll bring it down to like 12 or something. What it kind of looks like there's 2 suns in the sky, which or somebody's shining their headlights on it. Let's go to 11. See what this looks like. So that kind of looks cool. I kind of like that effect, but it's just too bright though, but still it's nice. Let's go to 9. I think we were at 9. We'll go to 9, see what that looks like. And we'll take a little bit of the temperature down. Oh, I wonder if that... I've got a delivery coming today. So what's really nice is that this UltraScenery XT gives you, because there's another product in the DAS store and it's called Terradome. And Terradome used to be my go-to thing for mountains, where you could use Terradome and you could create any kind of, just about any kind of land surface you want. You could just put a basic plane in. But what you didn't get with Terradome is, you see this, these beaches, how when you put just a plane in, it just chopped the land off. Like there was no border around. And with UltraScenery XT, you get these amazing beaches. And I believe we use the lowest. Now, if you go up to 512, I think the reason why this, you see, we have some little spots that are missing. That's because we used the 128 instead of the 512, because we made the land, the geometry underneath so sparse that it had to like decide whether if it was going to use this chunk or get rid of it. And so these little, they don't look bad. They just look like they're parts of the land. There's some, odd land formation. That's the way the land often looks that way anyway. So it doesn't look that bad, but the computer had to decide, is this going to be part of the land or the water or underwater? But the thing is, the water is smart. It reacts with the land and creates this berm that's around the edge, okay? It creates that. Terradome doesn't have that. Terradome doesn't have trees. It doesn't generate trees. This, I just kind of don't use Terradome anymore. And Terradome, I love. The only time I use Terradome is when I'm going to take and create. I'll create a piece of land from Terradome, and then I will take and draw, and I'll make that Terradome piece of land as high resolution as I can. And then what I'll do is, I'll make it high resolution by shrinking it, okay? Shrinking it way down and then putting it in front of my scene. And then I will select those areas with my mouse around the edge of the water, and then I will make a surface out of that in Geometry Editor. And then I can put my own, then I can put like a berm texture around, or border texture around the edge. But this does such a nice job of it. You just lower the water and it lowers where the berm is, where it begins and ends. So it's smart. It knows that the water is intersecting with the land and it has to change the textures. So this is what's really, really, really nice about UltraScenery XT. This is still too bright. I would say we could go down to probably 5 and it would still work. If we get it just right, this frontal land, or I guess forefront, land in the forefront here, will blend right in with our. I think that's still a little too high. So let's go to 2. And I would say that Terradome's a great product, and you can get, if you get it on sale, you can get probably like the whole, most of the Terradome stuff for a very low price. The only thing is, like I said, Terradome doesn't have trees. or, you know, anything. It's just the ground. But what's nice about Terradome is it has very high resolution. I don't think they're as nice as these textures on this land. This is really, really, really done well, these textures on the land. So I would say the textures are better here than the Terradome textures, but you have like a whole, you got snow, you got all kinds of different choices with the Terradome textures. And the thing is, you don't need them very high resolution. And what you do is then you use ultra scatter, and you just scatter on top of Terradome the trees, the size, whatever. But you notice how you have to be good with ultra scatter to get this kind of look, because you notice it's not scattered on the top. You have to know how to set the elevation in ultra scatter. You have to know how to resize and how to set the slope stuff so that it scatters, and how to set the elevation scatter. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of settings in ultra scatter, and this UltreScernery XT just does it all for you. It's right all within, does a beautiful job of this. So wait until UltreScernery XT goes on sales, and it's been on some big sales, and pick it up. And if you do what if your computer's not that strong and you use it and you want to use it with UltraScenery like I've done here, they're both hogs. But UltraScenery is a much bigger hog. Well, it depends on how you use UltraScenery, okay? So, but if you use it like this, where you have it only generate the edge and use it with that drop-off effect, like this looks like it's the bank of something, and just a little bit beyond here is like a roly-poly hill or valley that goes down into the water. And judging by the size of these trees, it could go down quite a ways before it hits the water, because this looks far away. So you want that effect. You want a really interesting background. You don't just want a sky, to UltraScenery and have a sky, just there. You want some depth, maybe the water here, and then this, and then your HDMI. So, all right, very good. I think I've lost everybody. I'm not sure who's still here. Everybody is busy today. I appreciate that. I love it when everybody's busy. I think we've got Angus here. At one point, we had 3 people here, all at one time. Angus, you have a lovely day. You're my #1 supporter. I appreciate it, what you do for me very much. And Sigmund says hi. Hi! Oh. All right. Well, I think that was me saying hi. I was saying hi for him, just like with his sentiment, All right. We will see you again in another video. I hope creating an HDRI with UltreScenery XT was helpful for you. So, take care, and I will see you in another video soon. This is Rex Red saying so long for now. Have a wonderful day. Angus is gone, but I'll take a message. Hi, back from Peter and the gang. Hi, Peter. Very nice to see you. And the gang, all your other pals and friends, Angus. So, yes, they're very much like mine. Very similar in more ways than one. So we have a little menagerie. So I don't know if I said that word right, but thank you very much, Angus, for spending the time here. And we got 3 likes today, so I lowered the resolution of my stream. I'm wondering if it looks blurry, if it doesn't look as nice as it usually does. Let me know. YouTube seems to think that bit rate is fine for my stream, and probably they're right that it's probably if I go much higher that it's not going to be that noticeable. I know it's noticeable when I move my mouse, or if I move my hand or something, or move my hand across here, it's kind of blurry, but that's the way it is. So I hope all is good. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Angus, and I will see you again in another video soon. This is Rex Red. Please like if you're watching this after the broadcast. Please, if you click the bell for notifications, you can come in and be part of the gang we have here. We have Anus and Pat and Habib and Angus, and yeah. So and we have other people who stop in from time to time as well. And you can do what Pat did. You can just ask me a question and get your answer. I think he had to go and try that out. I do that. I inspire people. I'll say one thing and it's like they're back into Daz gonna try it out and see if it works. So, all right. But thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely, lovely day. It's Rex Red.